Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of re423, where I take old stories of narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Pecking Order, written by AK1308. Churstic twitched his eye stalks as he rubbed the top of his brain case with his upper right manipulator, while scratching his backplates with his lower left. In his other two manipulators, he held a flimsy with a list on it. On the list was a name, one he was unfamiliar with. In fact, he had trouble even pronouncing it. Okay, this is probably a misprint, but is there someone here called David Stylus?
Yes, affirmative. Present I am.
The accent was atrocious, but the words were understandable. Churstic stared as the human pushed his way forward between the other workers. At least, he assumed the newcomer was a male. From what little he understood of the aliens, their females had hyper-evolved mammary glands on their upper torso. This one had a bright yellow covering on his head, some sort of heavy covering for a single pair of manipulators. More covering on his feet, and his clothing was an odd shade of dull blue. His head only came up to Churstic's upper set of shoulders, and he looked absolutely skinny next to the bulky workers.
"They are a human,"
Churstic said at last. Already, behind the alien, chuckles and murmurs were beginning to spread.
Yes,
David Stylus, too many syllables, looked back at him.
Does exist problem?
"Are you sure you can handle this work?"
Churstic spread his upper arms to encompass the sight.
"It can be rough."
The alien's mouth widened and opened to show his sharp white teeth, they were called, made of bone or at least calcium. Churstic understood the humans chewed up meat with them. Was this a threat display in response to the challenge?
Construction I worked before here came.
Churstic resisted the urge to step back. He was the foreman here, not this.
"What do I call you? I can't keep saying David Stylus."
The flexible lips covered those teeth again.
You say wrongly. No stop in between. David Styles.
The alien ran the names together.
I call David or Styles, not both.
He was more fluent. Perhaps he had explained this many times.
"Good, great. I'll call you Styles then."
It was marginally easier to pronounce.
Yes, you named Churstic.
He almost got it right, which was impressive given his lack of pseudo-mandibles.
"Yes, but everyone calls me foreman or boss."
Respect, after all, was important.
I say boss.
"Good."
Churstic inflated his primary and secondary lungs.
"All right, you layabouts, show and tell is over. You can gawk at the alien later. Right now, we've got a job to do."
Still muttering to one another, the workers began to disperse, some still looking back at the human who stood alone before Churstic.
"What do I do, boss?"
asked Styles.
"Well, first I've got to check you out on the machinery,"
Churstic decided.
"If you can't handle them, I'll put you on shovel work.
And if you can't handle that, then I'll have to find out who sent you and yell at them a bit."
Yes,
Churstic got the impression that Styles wanted to say more, but didn't have the words yet. That was fine with him. He wasn't here to chat. A smaller dirt mover was standing unattended nearby. He led Styles to the vehicle and climbed up into it. Start. Pressing the start button caused the heavy engine to burst into life. Stop. Pressing the same button for a bit longer killed the engine.
Styles nodded. Start. Stop. Yes.
With the machine still off, Churstic manipulated the controls.
"Scoop up, scoop down, forward, backward, turn left, turn right.
Understand?"
"Yes, boss."
The answer was too swift, too ready for Churstic's liking. Still, the human was showing willing, so he climbed down.
"Get up there and show me what you can do."
Styles climbed up into the machine. He spent a few moments adjusting the seat so that his appendages would reach the controls promptly, which Churstic approved of. Then he hit the start button. The machine kicked over with a roar. He did not set it into motion yet, apparently playing randomly with the controls until he found the one that fed more fuel to the engine. Then he did that unsettling thing with his teeth again. He set the machine in motion. Every worker Churstic had ever trained on dirt movers started off as a crawl until they got used to the idea of moving faster than their own legs could propel them. Not so Styles. He took off in a blast of fumes, swerving a little from side to side, but definitely under control. Stopping, he backed in a circle one way and then another, turned his head. Wait, humans could do that? Those slender necks, which looked absurdly fragile, suddenly took on a new significance. Humans could turn their heads to look behind them. Chestic hadn't known that before. While the foreman was still absorbed in that notion, Styles drove the dirt mover over to a large pile that had been excavated to make way for the foundation of the current construction. The controls for the scoop were designed to be used by the lower manipulators, while the upper were driving the machine. But Styles seemed to be doing just fine with only two. His technique was a bit rough and ready, but he filled the scoop with dirt and took it a little way away from the pile. Chestic walked closer, curious. By the time he got there, two more scoopfuls had joined the first, and Styles was maneuvering the machine around the small pile of dirt, doing something with the scoop. As he stood there watching, Chestic joined him.
But what is he doing?
Chestic spread all four manipulators to show uncertainty.
Not sure. Showing off, I think.
How long's he been practicing with that dirt mover? Chestic sounded a little envious. He still wasn't very good on it.
Showed him how? Just now.
Well, shit.
Apparently humans are fast learners.
Let's hope he's a real fast learner. Something in Chestic's tone caught Chestic's attention.
What do you mean?
Look to your right. Chestic did so, half turning his torso. Victus was standing a small distance away with several of his cronies in tow. The burly troublemaker was glaring at the human as, unaware, he put the finishing touches on what he was doing. The dirt mover backed away, leaving a perfectly square pile of dirt that had been expertly shaped and flattened by the flat underside of the scoop. Styles shot off the dirt mover and jumped off of it. He trotted up to Chestic. Approval request, boss.
That's pretty impressive, Styles, the foreman allowed.
You've used these machines before? Not these, Styles explained. Same but different.
Similar. Gotcha.
Chestic clicked his pseudo-mandibles in approval. You've used machines like these other ones as well? Turning, he pointed to the construction equipment with his upper right manipulator. Yes, can learn, Styles said. I'll just bet you can, Chestic agreed silently. The human was almost unnervingly competent, while not showing any sign of boastfulness.
Well, you're on the dirt mover for the morning. This is Chestic. He'll tell you what you need to do.
The human moved his head forward and backward on that absurdly slender neck. Was this some sort of signal? Yes. Then he turned towards Chestic without moving his torso, startling the other worker. Chestic. His accent was still atrocious, but he had just about got the name right. You tell I do. Chestic clicked his pseudo-mandibles. You're weird, but I like you already. He pointed over to the far side of the work site. Meet me over there. I got some work for you. Chestic watched them go, then turned to search Verticus, but the other worker was nowhere to be seen. Planning some sort of mischief, no doubt. Well, when it happens, I'll just have to put a stop to it. Stinking human! The words loudly spoken dropped into the middle of the lunchtime murmur, like a large rock into a quiet pond. Chestic stood up hurriedly, turning from side to side to see if he could spot Chestic, but the foreman wasn't there. The speaker, Verticus, of course, was advancing on Styles as the latter sat eating something from a box he'd brought with him. Chestic wasn't sure if he wanted to know what it was exactly. He caught glimpses of the human's teeth from time to time, and knew that they denoted a carnivorous diet, omnivorous at the very least. Styles did not stand up, nor did he shrink into the submissive pose. Instead, he turned that weirdly flexible neck so that he was looking at Verticus. Apologies. Sweat to cool, makes smell. Verticus must have taken the pose as submissive anyway, because he stepped closer, threatening. You need to take your stinking human self away from our work site. You're not welcome here. Verticus stepped forward.
Leave him alone. He's a good worker, and I can't even smell his sweat he's talking about.
Verticus's pseudo-mandibles spread wide in anger. Shut your food hole, The abbreviation could have been friendly if he and Verticus knew each other better, but they didn't, and it wasn't. Used in this fashion, it was an insult. Chestic stepped forward, his manipulators flexing. Two of Verticus's cronies came to meet him. Stay out of this, one of them said. This is between Verticus and the human. Chestic's own pseudo-mandibles spread wide, and he clenched his manipulators. He figured he could take one of them, and maybe two if he was lucky, but he didn't want to start the fight. Appreciation, it was Styles, setting his food down. The human stood up, looking positively weedy next to the bulky Verticus. Action unnecessary. I am capable. For a few brief moments, Chestic thought that this was as far as it would go, and Verkus would not actually start a fight. Then the troublemaker's upper right manipulator swung through the air, striking Styles in the shoulder. The human went sprawling, but rolled to his feet almost instantly. No outer integument, internal skeleton, makes them much more flexible, huh? Verkus did not realize this yet. He was still turning to face his victim by the time Styles was standing once more. Styles rubbed his shoulder.
Query totality.
I'll show you totality, you! Verkus lumbered forward, but the human wasn't there anymore, displaying a speed and agility that he simply hadn't bothered to use before. Styles darted past his attackers, back to where he'd been seated. For a moment, Kurtisk thought that Styles was being smart. Running away from a physically superior opponent was an intelligent thing to do, after all. But then the human stopped and picked up something. It was a metal wrench, long and heavy, something the weaker lower extremity would not be able to handle. Styles was hefting it in one hand with ease. This gave Kurtisk a certain insight into how human muscular systems worked. Apparently, they're more efficient than ours. Verkus was still turning around when Styles hit him with the wrench. Everyone heard the sickening crack of the outer integument breaking. Verkus let out a piercing scream as his upper left appendage fell to his side. Styles hefted the wrench again, surveying the group. His wildly mobile lips were pulled back from his teeth once more. Kurtisk had no doubt that this was a threat display this time. He felt a stab of fear deep in the pit of his third stomach. Styles was a carnivore, and the fact that they had him surrounded and outnumbered didn't seem to bother him at all. The speed he can move, I'm not surprised. He could tag us all before we landed another blow in him. Query, others wish same? The stilted way of speaking somehow made the human more menacing, not less. He gestured with the wrench, and everyone took half a step away from him. Verkus was swaying on his feet, upper right appendage clutching where Styles had crippled the upper left.
Clarification, blow was not strong.
Oh, come on, I didn't hit him that hard. Yes, it was that hard. Kurtisk found himself speaking up. He's not going to be using that appendage for at least half a year, maybe more.
Excrement. Apologies. Ignorance.
Kurtisk made a noise of amusement. It was Verkus who was ignorant. He shouldn't have picked on you. What the crap is going on here? It was Cherstik's voice, and he didn't sound all that pleased. Everyone turned towards him and backed away. Before he turned away from Styles, Kurtisk saw the human lowering the wrench and covering his teeth again. Cherstik's pseudo-mandibles were spread wide as he glared at the assembled workers. I turned my back for one lunch break, and you're already attacking the human. I thought that we were better than that.
Boss,
it was Styles talking. He didn't sound angry, but then Kurtisk didn't know what an angry human sounded like.
The human not injury can work.
And what about Verkus? He's definitely injured. The human made a strange motion with his shoulders. Right, endoskeleton, flexible, but it still looks weird.
Strike same force as he, ignorant fragility.
Cherstik seemed to be working that out. You hit him as hard as he hit you, and you didn't know how easy we are to hurt. That weird head motion again.
Yes, apologies.
Kurtisk couldn't figure the human out. He was a carnivore through and through. That was for certain. Verkus had hit him hard enough to crack integument, but his appendages were still perfectly serviceable. The return blow had been too fast to dodge, and would have killed Verkus if it had impacted his brain case. With all that, he'd been defending himself, and had chosen what he thought was a non-damaging strike, and had apologized for crippling his attacker. Cherstik's pseudo-mandibles eased together again. I'll escort Verkus to get his appendages looked at. Perhaps they can glue or weld the integument well enough to hold together. In the meantime, can the rest of you behave yourselves? Oh, I don't think that's going to be a problem, Kurtisk observed. Everyone was still staring at the human. He gestured to Styles. You want to sit and talk while we eat?
Agreement,
Styles said, and retrieved his box.
Talk about what?
Well, for starters, Kurtisk began, where did you learn to fight like that? The human's weirdly mobile face made an expression that Kurtisk didn't even try to interpret.
Fight? Not fight, just strike.
That odd motion with his two flexible shoulders.
Fight, strike harder.
Oh shit, he crippled Verkus by accident. That wasn't even a fight to him. He can look behind himself, take a hit that would crack my integument, and move faster than anything I've ever seen before. I'm definitely never pissing any humans off, ever. Around him, the lunch break went on. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.